So here are my top 5 reasons why I've left the UK. If you're new to my channel, my name is Saira Hayati and I previously spent my whole life in the banking world, in the world of finance, in the world of property, in the UK, finger on the pulse on all sorts of investments and advice and all the right people. And that was why I was able to jump ship a lot sooner than many people are now thinking about making that move. I had planned this probably, you could say, a year ago. I have friends in the tax world, I have friends in the gold world, I have friends who are watching the stock market and bitcoins, and all the right people were surrounding me. Anyway, with all of this data being pumped into my head and the way that my brain works, my brain was spinning every single night. I couldn't sleep. I had like anxiety because all I could think of was, I need to get out. It's getting worse. I can't do anything. I can't make any money without half of it then going to the government and then thinking about where that money was going next, because I understand all of the social systems as well. So anyway, let's jump into my 5 top reasons. So the first one is tax, okay? The taxation has just got worse. Previously, you could make money out of property. Now the government wants a slice of that. Not only are you paying higher stamp duty, you are paying higher income tax. And I think that's probably the worst bit. You're no incentive to earn more than £50,000. Because above that, you're going to pay 40%. And even if you went to like £150,000, you're going to pay 50% in tax. I can't remember the exact brackets, but I know that there comes a point where half of your earnings will go to the tax man. All right, not the first, anything above that amount, but why should you be penalized? Why should you have to pay a greater tax simply because you're earning more money? Don't you strive to do that when you're young? Don't you strive to get an education because you want a job that's going to pay you really well? They've got a cap on it. The average man just isn't permitted to have wealth because they don't want you to pass a certain barrier. Anyway, that I could just go into. The weather. Let's talk about the weather, right? Because, I mean, you have 4 seasons. With those seasons, you have a wardrobe for every season. And then sometimes it's not as if you can put a season away and then live in another season, because sometimes what happens is you're in winter and you'll have a summer day, and you're in summer and you might have snow. Randomly, it's so irregular. There's no way of planning your life, and that leads on to just your whole life. Social events, you can't have any. So you end up staying indoors and depression kicks in. You know, those grey skies, those rainy days, the fact that you can't socialise anywhere, the fact you can't do anything without having to spend some bucks on doing it, like flying abroad. And we go away to enjoy ourselves, only to then come back and get over the money that we've spent abroad and then get back to work and have to work the backlog that we've left behind. Do you see what I mean? There's no enjoyment. People are sinking. So the elderly are on death row. Why are they on death? They should be living their best life. We work our whole lives to then retire, and you have a pension. Some of you will have a pension. The majority of people that have decent pensions, do you honestly think they're sat in the UK? I can categorically tell you they're not. They've moved out. They're spending their money in other countries. And so then this is what you have to think about now. Do you want to strive the whole of your life to get your pension and your earnings in the UK, only then to move out? Why not just do it now? That was my thought process. Anyway, education, big one, huge. Number 3 on the list. Biggest reason why people are leaving the UK, and why I did too, because my daughter was going to school. She was being taught subjects that I didn't want her to learn. They're teaching children to grow up way too fast. And whilst I can understand that topics need to be discussed for the benefit of the child, I get all of that. I did fostering for 3 years. I understand the risks that children are surrounded by these days and why having that education is important. But I think that they're giving the children far too many rights. If they're giving the child the right, what is your right as a parent over your child, actually? Have you thought about that? None. Like, we're getting serious here now, because if you've had children, you went to all that trouble, right? To pregnancy, delivery, sleepless nights, growing them when they were babies, nurturing them, and what's the outcome at the end of the day? They're then going to be taken over by an education system and have their heads filled with a whole load of information like guinea pigs, because really they don't know what they're doing. It's all trial and error. Let's teach the children about this. Actually, we've trialed this and seen that it's been effective, so let's roll it out across the whole of the UK to all of the children, and feed their brains with a whole load of stuff that they're just not developed enough to understand. They just don't comprehend it. And therefore, that information is making our children lose their identity as children. You know, they're growing up far too quickly. They're learning things that the capacity in their body just doesn't know how to handle. And they're getting to their teens and they're doing things they don't even understand why, and falling then into depression and anxiety, and they're damaging them. So that's another reason why. Luckily, my older children bypassed all of this, but I have got an 8-year-old and I just don't want her to do this. I want her to be able to live a life where she can grow at her own pace and learn at her own pace and not be exposed to things that she just doesn't need to know right now. She needs to just be a child. That's all she needs to do. Play, enjoy, be a child. Learn about maths and English and science and fairy tales and bunnies and cats and animals, and just do all of the stuff that kids generally enjoy, playing with one another without being taught about nonsense that then makes their inquisitive little minds do all sorts of things. We have ruined our kids, peeps. We've allowed the schools to take over and they're ruining, and the governments are making these curriculums and just rolling them out to the education system. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate about it, and I don't want it. I want my child to learn what I want her to learn, and I want her to grow at a pace I want her to grow at, and schools aren't allowing that. So education has gone down. The classroom, the respect for teachers has gone down. Secondary schools are an absolute mess. They are a disappointment. They are disgusting, the way that the children are behaving. You get to 14 and you have peer pressure to have performed in certain areas, and if you haven't, you get picked on. Do you know what I mean? You have bullying that is out of control, you know, because now we have phones and the cyberbullying that people do to one another, the damaging of self-esteem, because there's images everywhere of how you should look. There's also the innocence of children, young girls, young boys, sharing pictures, sharing images. You know, the suicide rates are up in the younger generation. Why is that? Why? Because they've been damaged. So, education system was one of the things. Not to mention universities. The children are having, our own British children are having to take out extensive loans to fund degrees, right? I can understand foreigners coming in being charged to pay for their degrees, but how are you going to run a country in the future if you make it difficult for your own to get degrees? And for that reason, you are dumbing down your nation, and then you are damaging yet again the future generation, because only the rich are going to be able to afford for their children to go to university, to get qualifications and be on that higher tier. You know, our children are having to go abroad to get cheaper education. Like, I know people where their children have gone to Belgium or other countries in Europe to study their medical degrees, to then come back to the UK because the UK was far too expensive. Where's the sense in that, you know? So that was number 4. Number 5 on my list is safety. Phew. Who feels safe walking out on the street at night? I don't. Now don't think it's because of my scarf, no, because I've only just worn this. I've only had it on for like maybe 9 months, but prior to that I wouldn't go out into my town centre at night, definitely not on my own. I would be very cautious about walking anywhere secluded on my own. And the simple reason is there's too many prowlers out there, there's too many hungry people, there's too many opportunists, chancers. You know, the availability of sites that fill people's minds with just evil acts and selfish acts. So I just think that the safety on the streets is low. Not only that, the simple policing is difficult because the bigger crimes are rising. There's a huge increase in drug-related crimes. There's a huge increase of children going into drug-related crimes. So with that in mind, I think that the safety on the streets is low. I think crime on the streets is high, and I think that the government haven't funded the police well enough to be able to provide the protection that we need. And if the protection was right, if the punishment was right, the crimes wouldn't happen, would they? And the patriotism is out the window. Also, not to mention, immigration is out the window. It's now a money spinner. People are coming to the UK to rob it and run. And that's what's happening. So that was another huge reason why I left the UK, and why I think something that you need to consider as a factor as well. Not to mention number, where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go to 6 actually straight away, because it's the government, it's bankrupt. Everywhere you go, the local authorities are bankrupt. They're not spending on the bins, they're not spending on fireworks. Like, they can't pay out for fireworks. Have you wondered, if they can't pay out for fireworks, if they're not filling the potholes, where is your money going? Your taxes are super high. Your council tax is through the roof. My council tax was like nearly £300 because I bought a new build house, and the council tax banding is better on older houses than it is on new houses. Why, I have no idea, but that's the way it is. And no doubt the older houses will catch up because it's a tax and they like to up the taxes, don't they? So local authorities, main cities have gone bankrupt, and it's no doubt others are going to follow soon as well. And the question is, if we're paying so much and the money isn't being spent on us, where is the money going, right? It's just all out of blooming control. So that was number 6. Number 7 is spending outside and not on the people. A large amount of tax goes out of the country. People are on their knees in the country, yet billions of pounds are going out of the country to fund wars we do not need to fund. But not only that, you know, there's international aid. I understand what Rishi's doing there with the international aid, pays it out, gets it back. There's not enough being spent in on the, it just doesn't make sense. The bulk of, we've seen all of the corruption that has been within the government's exposure has happened over the last few years, especially after COVID, where things leaked and certain people blew the whistle on underhanded deals that were happening. So the government is feeding themselves and they're robbing the people. They're on a complete grab of money, and us people collectively, we can't do anything about it. So there you go. Finally, finishing off with my number 8, which is another reason that I was fearful of, is that because the UK and the US have had their fingers in so many acts of war, whatever the reason may be, they've had crucial participation in that. And now it looks like we're going to get the backlash, and I just didn't want to be around for when that happened, because I just want to live a quiet, peaceful life like you do. And that's why I moved as far away as I could from all of the trouble, and hope that I can sustain myself here. And I'm sure that I will, because it's a lovely country and they're lovely people, but they are my main reasons why I left the country, England as it was, which was great once, and it has just gone downhill significantly because all they're trying to do, and the government is ruining it. I mean, I'm not British. All right, I'm British by birth, but I'm not British, am I really? I'm from Pakistan. My parents were from Pakistan. My parents' parents were from Afghanistan. And you know, if you look back over people's family history, you'll find that nobody's really a true Brit. There really isn't. And you look around the whole world, if you started to do all of that, but people need to start to let people live. Live and let live. But we can't do that as a people because we have governments above us and they're just shaking everything up and making a mess of it. So you just have to make the best, just get the best of what you want, what you can get somewhere else. And that's exactly what I did. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you've enjoyed any of what I've given you in this video and any of the information that I've given you, give us a thumbs up, like, share, follow, the usuals, and keep watching, because I am going to share all of my experiences here, and these are the factors that you've got to take into account. It might not be Malaysia that you decide to move to, you might want to move somewhere else, but there are some important factors that you need to consider about why you're leaving. They're pretty much the main ones that I can tell you from my lifelong experience and insights. And then they're going to be the things that you're going to look for in a country that you move to, because obviously that's your negative reason why you're leaving, and now you've got to look at your